Welcome to Indie Music Podcast, episode 310, Prioritization and Techniques to Focus. Indie Music Podcast now has a Patreon at patreon.com/indie_musiccast, and we invite you to become a member for exclusive benefits. For next to nothing per month, you can get members-only podcast video, early access to upcoming episodes, merch, and more. This morning, Matt and I get together for coffee and discuss thoughts over self-care, focus time, ideas for prioritization, and strategies for handling your list of things to get done. Enjoy the show.
Good morning, Doug.
Hey, good morning. Check 1, 2, 3.
3, 2, 1.
All right.
Check. It's a sweatshirt kind of day.
Oh, I don't know what it is. It's I don't know, 5 degrees here or something.
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything then.
It's a Black Widow kind of morning.
What's that?
That's 4 shots of espresso with a Sumatra pour over.
All right, then.
And a little bit of almond milk creamer, vanilla.
Yeah, I do the stovetop espresso. I have I guess it's a 6-cup, technically the 6-cup espresso maker.
Yeah.
That's my coffee in the morning, the whole thing. But I usually just have it once a day. And then the rest of the day is tea.
Tea. I like tea. I usually am, I make homemade kombucha. So.
Oh, that's right. How's that going?
It's going great. It's going great. I've got like 2 gallons fermenting right now. I've got one that I'm going to bottle later today.
Oh,
yeah. Trying to get it so that I don't run out. And with 1 gallon bottled, I end up with about 4 or 5 days of no kombucha.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have like 8 ounces a day. And,
okay.
And so I started, my scobies like multiplied. So I got enough scobies for like 2 batches now. And so I am, I offset the next one by 5 days. And that way I'll have a rotation and hopefully won't run out.
What's a SCOBY exactly?
That's the actual culture that, that goes, you put into the sweet tea mix.
Okay.
And that's what actually does the fermentation. So the bacteria and yeast and everything in there, those end up being all the probiotics that are in the finished kombucha.
So is this flavored kombucha or is this like the straight stuff?
I've been adding like fresh squeezed juices to it. And I add a little bit of sugar to it too, about a teaspoon. But by the time that it's done bottling, all the sugar's pretty much gone because the yeast eats it.
Right.
So it's actually low sugar content, even though I put sugar in there to feed the yeast, and I do that for carbonation. That's really the reason for putting that in there. But yeah,
what does the alcohol content come out to be when you make it yourself?
About the same as like soy sauce or something. About
0.05 or something.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you use like what do you use for bottling, like Grolsch bottles or something?
Yeah, they're not actually Grolsch bottles, but they're the flip top bottles that are like Grolsch bottles, and they work really good. And so far, I haven't had to reuse the little seals that go on there. So, but they're inexpensive. So.
That's cool.
I got a local place here that sells all kinds of. They're more geared towards beer brewing, but the stuff is the same. So,
yeah, I was going to say it's probably all the same stuff, more or less, except for maybe the yeast.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. So between the healthy drink and the kind of hobby-esque task of making your own kombucha, that sounds like it all falls under the heading of self-care.
Yeah. Do things that are fun and healthful in a way, I guess is a good self-care thing. I took it up as a hobby because it was a Christmas present. And I had it on my Amazon wish list, and I ended up getting it, and I was like, hey, cool. So anyway, started doing it. It was actually, the first batch turned out pretty good, but it wasn't carbonated at all. And I was like, well, how do I make this better? And so it's just been, a work in progress.
Yeah,
And
like
and
anything, you iterate.
yeah, and
on
now I'm
beer.
ready to do like the drive up kombucha shop. All right.
Little stand, like a
Yeah.
lemonade stand, except it's
Yeah.
kombucha, and you got your little square out there taking wireless payments. There you go. You got your summer sorted.
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny. I never did take up a lot of people took up like, that kind of I don't know, making stuff hobbies during lockdown and whatnot. A lot of people did sourdough starter. I never did get into that. I can buy sourdough down the street so cheap because I live in, this Bay Area. That's where it comes from, right? So, never got into that, but there was a lot of baking, and I did try a lot of new recipes over the last couple of years, but nothing so involved as making my own beer or kombucha or sourdough starter.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Any of those, as long as you have like, I don't know how important the temperature of the room is for the sourdough. I know with yeast, you got to keep it in within a temperature range of like 72 to 84 or 86 or so, somewhere in there because of the yeast. But so it's probably the same for sourdough, but
yeah, in our house where my wife doesn't let me turn the heater down very well, very far, it's probably a good place for yeast to grow.
Yeah.
Is what's interesting is that some people use, like, they catch the wild yeast from the air to get it going, which just always fascinates me.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that there's just like yeast floating around, and if you give it the right circumstances, it'll make bread in a bowl somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they discovered mead,
Yeah.
in the bottom, in a tree stump. So
Oh, is that right?
yeah.
What kind of person goes drinking something they find in a tree stump and goes, hey, this is better than I expected?
It's medieval times, so.
Oh my God. So that took a wild tangent. So this week I think we're talking about health, self-care. I almost said healthcare. That's a different topic. Self-care, taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind, your body, your spirit.
Isn't that what music does for us?
I think so. I think music falls into that category, whether you're playing it or listening to it. I think that, I mean, isn't that the draw? It refuels your spirit. If you move, it refuels your body too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, dancing. Like
Dancing is good for you.
Done that.
Yeah, I haven't done that lately either. I think that's something I need to reincorporate into my life. We used to do like a Friday night dance party, turn the music up real loud, and the whole family would just kind of like shake it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was a time I actually won first place in a roller skating dance competition.
Get out.
Did.
When was this? You don't have to say the year.
It was a long time ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
let's say back when double patent leather skates were all the rage.
Oh my. Okay. But they weren't the kind that you clip onto the bottom of your shoe and
no,
tightened with a key, right?
No.
That's before my time. I'm sure it's before yours too. Do you feel like this is a topic that I'm leading? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Because
yes.
Yeah, because that wasn't really my original thought for the topic, but we can go with self-care.
Oh, I was just going by what you posted in Slack last night. So, okay, I guess you got something to talk about on that one. So,
yeah, no, that was just an idea.
Okay. Well, it had 10-minute legs on it then. So,
yeah, There you go. Oh, what I really wanted to talk about was what was on my mind lately is you ever feel like you get to a point where you just kind of like want to, and I don't mean this literally, but you feel like you're, I don't know, stuck in a rut or something, or you're just kind of overwhelmed and you just kind of feel like you just want to blow it all up and start fresh from scratch kind of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like a talking heads kind of thing. How did we get here?
Yeah.
And, I'm often nostalgic and based on whatever events are occurring that might take me back. But that kind of stuff kind of gets me in a retrospective mindset. And sometimes, where I'm like, well, what am I really doing here? Where's the passion in whatever this thing is or whatever?
Exactly that.
The thing is that when I'm focused in my studio and on producing or audio engineering, I don't feel that. It's exactly where I want to be. And I think it's important to find something like that does that for you, that feeds that passion. But I can't always be here. I've got other things that I've got to do as well. And there's things about there's the audio engineering, and there's the business management side, which is not audio engineering. It's the part that allows me to keep doing audio engineering, even though I don't like doing that part of it much.
It's a completely separate skill set.
Yeah. And then there's everything outside of that. That's all home and family and friends and, all the other things that you've got going on that pull you away from what you want to be doing. Not to say family is that way, but other things that need to be done and tasks and stuff that are your responsibilities,
right?
And having to deal with those, and sometimes it's like, hey, grow up and get your stuff taken care of.
Right. That's part of it. But yeah, so I mean, we have in the past talked about burnout, and I think right now what I'm thinking of is is not the opposite, but it's tangential. It's overwhelm, and I think that burnout is kind of associated more with like you've done too much for too long without doing any self-care, without taking care of number one, and you get kind of depressed. And for me, the hallmark of that is you feel like you're not interested in doing anything. And that includes the things that normally excite and interest you. Like you just want to just check out. And to me, that's the sign of burnout. And have learned to recognize that in myself. But what I'm going through now, and I feel like, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but I feel like this may be something that you've gone through recently, which is kind of overwhelm, and you have like gone down some rabbit holes. I don't mean you personally. You go down some rabbit holes, and you kind of like start learning this and learning that and taking this advice and taking that advice and trying to carve a path in the middle of all the things that you're already doing. And at some point you just kind of like, just stop, let me reset from like, let me just kind of like, and I just refer to it like this in my own mind, like blow it all up and start over, which is just like everything, just stop everything, reset. Where am I now? Where am I headed? What's important, and focus and go from there as if you're, I don't know, like a pit stop, you're going around the track and going around the track and going around the track. And, I don't know, am I in the first place? Am I in last place? Does it matter? I don't know. I'm going to pull off, get my tires changed, get some gas, and then go again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. The way that I look at this, so I've got X, Y, Z, and a whole bunch of other items that are on my list, and these all have priorities, and I really need to work. When I'm getting dysfunctional is when I'm choosing lower priority items so that I can defer higher priority items that I don't want to do. And we kind of laugh about that in our house because we do that with the little things, and cleaning and whatever. I don't want to do that. I got 2 loads of laundry to do, but I'd totally rather like, go fix that light, or whatever,
Right.
which
Yeah,
doesn't need to be done.
absolutely.
You know,
Been there, do that. I feel like I do that every weekend almost.
yeah. But oftentimes due to priorities, and when I'm not being dysfunctional, when I'm actually handling priorities, and I'm that often means that the stuff that I'm really passionate about and want to do isn't going to be the stuff that I'm actually doing, because I've got things that are really important or higher priority that need to be taken care of. And I think that's helpful. And what also factors into that is self-care stuff like rest and nutrition and things like that. So oftentimes, rest is the highest priority over one of the other things that needs to be done. And that's just so that the next day can go at it as hard as I can again, on this stuff. And, so things just have to fall into the order that they need to fall into. And, as things get delayed, things may happen where they become higher priorities. It's not that they just sort of shift. They may actually jump because
True.
We haven't got to it yet. And now we got to get to it.
Now it's an emergency.
Yeah. And it's not that we need to always work in an emergency situation, but it's like sometimes you get behind, and or the workload and the number of high priority things can overwhelm all the other things that you want to get done, and overwhelm you. Which is why rest is really important.
Yeah. And some things aren't time sensitive until they are. Like maybe that leaky faucet is not a big deal until suddenly it's you can't shut it off and it's a real problem, and it was an annoyance, and now you got to stop everything and take care of that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
As an example. But your point is very valid. I think that one of the reasons that I've recently come to the place where I feel like I need to just stop and reset is because I fell out of some of my good habits that I developed last year. One of which was taking definite pauses throughout the day to just sit and not do anything. I think that we I will put the finger squarely on cell phones, but with these these very attractive and compelling computers in our pocket all the time, we don't really have downtime anymore. Anytime we have a free minute, we're looking at our phones and getting inundated with information and stuff, rather than taking a few minutes to stop and sit and let the thoughts that you're already having just kind of sort themselves out and go, okay, this is what I should be doing right now. Okay, this is where I should be going right now. Instead of just kind of like going all the time and then wondering how you got where you went, you're kind of like wandering aimlessly through a city instead of heading where you're supposed to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that is one of the things that's very helpful and that needs to come back into our daily habit, is just breaks where you're not actually doing anything in particular. And sometimes that can be simply, doing the dishes and staring out the window and letting the thoughts come, but not being afraid of your thoughts, not pushing them aside and not replacing them with paying attention to stuff that's somebody else's information, like your email or your social media feed. Just having your own thoughts for a while really helps you sort out your own stuff and get your priorities straight, so that you don't find yourself in a spot where you feel like you don't know how you got there and you need to throw everything out and start over again.
Some people use techniques like Pomodoro, and actually set timers, and during this timer session, I'm going to focus on the X, and when the timer goes up, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to handle email. I'm going to do whatever that thing is that you want to do for 5 minutes until your next Pomodoro timer session starts, where you're going to again have 30 minutes of focus time. and not deal with email, not take a break, not look at your phone, and all that. And that time is focused.
Right.
And I don't actually use a timer, but I do kind of do that. And that's just sort of like a habit you develop in kind of a work strategy, because you can often get overwhelmed by being inundated with other people's needs of you, and along with the stuff that you're directly responsible for. So, and that could be, I know you and I both we're tied to Slack, and we're, and text messaging, and all the communication, and the communication is really important. And and working with our artists and doing the work that we do, and being available is good business practice. It's good customer service,
True.
But you can't get anything done if you're working customer service all the time. You know what I mean?
Because it takes 20 minutes plus to reset yourself and refocus after an interruption.
Yeah. And so I think you need to give yourself permission to turn off the notifications for a period of time, so you can focus. And that focus might be working on those lyrics, that might be trying to compose that melody, and whatever that is that you're working on in your project. It might be that time where you're mixing the drums, so whatever. And and you just need to be able to focus on that. And again, I think that's a lot of it, is just give yourself permission to do that.
I agree with that. And and beyond that, just giving yourself time to make sure that you're working on the things you're supposed to be working on. I feel like sometimes that's like you said, getting distracted with little things. You got to major in your majors and minor in your minors, right? Don't major in your minors. Don't get caught up in the stuff that you're not supposed to be focused on, the stuff that's not as important. Although sometimes that's a way to feel productive. That's a way to get some small wins, is to just knock some little punch list items out, and gather a little momentum that way. But if you find yourself using that as a distraction technique to put off the big stuff, then you're right. It's time to just like set a timer. Just say, okay, I'm going to work on this for, and it doesn't even have to be a large amount of time. It can be like, I'm going to work on this for 15 minutes. And if you give yourself the permission to say, if I choose to go beyond that, I can go beyond that. But really, I'm just going to do a small piece of this. If it's something that you're putting off, then maybe that's what you need to do. But making sure that you are single focused on it is very important. And just say, I'm going to close my email. I'm going to close my Slack. I'm going to put my phone down or away, and just single focus on this one thing until I get a little traction on it. And if that builds some momentum and you work on it some more, that's even better. But and also before you do that, to make sure that is something that you should be focusing your time on. Because I find that sometimes I'll do what I call productive procrastination, where I will put something off, but the way I put it off is by doing other stuff that maybe isn't quite as important, but does still need to be done. You know what I mean? And at least you're doing something.
And it's not horrible either, because it may be a kind of a situation where, like, if I have to focus on this any longer, I absolutely am hating it,
Right.
And so the possibility that you could do better work if you were having a better attitude about that thing exists, where it might be better for you to go do something else,
True.
And that you're into, as long as it's not at the cost of something detrimental, whether it be a dissatisfied customer, or letting yourself down in some way, or whatever.
Right.
But I think these types of techniques are the impetus for these type of techniques is to develop self-discipline. And And if you find yourself going, okay, I'm going to spend 20 minutes unplugged and focusing on this issue. And then if you find yourself 7 minutes later on your phone, you know, then that's a discipline issue that, you know, if you really want to do something about it, then you need to like really work on it. So maybe it's a matter of, okay, I'm going to, instead of 20 minutes, I'm going to go for 10 minutes. Okay.
Exactly.
And then we're going to kind of build up on this because I have my phone addiction, and I'm going to need to work on weaning myself off of that, because cold turkey ain't going to work. So, you know, and whatever. So, and I know there's other techniques out there. It was just that Pomodoro was the only one that came to mind, because it's the only one I've actually ever kind of practiced. And
it's a really effective one, because it's, I think you're supposed to set a timer for, I think it's 25 minutes. That way you have 5 minutes to, you know, reset or use the restroom or whatever. But yeah, the funny thing about the Pomodoro technique is the guy that developed it. The reason it's called that, it means tomato in Italian. It's an Italian guy, and he would set a timer. And the timer that he would set was like a kitchen timer. That was shaped like a tomato. It's like a plastic tomato.
And that's what, if you go to the, I think they probably haven't been there in years, but if you go to their website, that's, you know, here's the Pomodoro technique, and, you know, support us by buying this tomato timer.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah.
Funny.
So
that's cute. I don't need anything ticking or dinging in here. That's that's anti audio.
I have enough technology surrounding me. I can make a timer. You know,
I think we all have a timer on our phone. Just ask. I won't say her name, but your person who lives in your phone,
whose name has changed, or not name, but whose voice has changed, and it's weird.
Oh, really? I use the British one. So
do you? Yeah. I tend to gravitate towards Australian females, and I also like on my like GPS and stuff like that, because I like the way, you know, leave the motorway, you know.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. No, when I had an Android phone, I used the Australian voice. I liked her a lot, because the British one on Android, she was not very nice, but the one on Apple, she's much more charming. It's true.
Are you going to take the exit,
it's
or are
funny
you going to
it's true.
Just
it's
drink your
like
tea
that.
and eat your crumpets? What the hell are you doing? I don't do accents, by the way. So
I'm not going to embarrass myself by attempting it. I can do that really well if I'm talking to somebody, like to an embarrassing level. Like if I'm talking to somebody who has an accent, it's very, very difficult for me not to take on that accent and start talking that way. I drove my family crazy in Europe, because I would do that everywhere we went, and it's almost like a sickness. I could not help it. Anyway, I think one of the things that you mentioned is part of the thing that's been happening to me, which is that when you're looking at email, when you're looking at Slack, when you're looking at social media, it's like incoming messages. That's somebody else's priority. That's somebody else's agenda. And when you're letting those impose on your own agenda and take your attention away, then you feel like you're being pulled in 100 different directions. And it makes it very difficult for you to navigate a straight path on your own priority list when you're being tugged in multiple directions and other paths. And when you start to go, oh, should I be doing that? Oh, should I be doing that? Oh, here's some interesting information. Oh, should I watch this video? Oh, this is something that's interesting to me. But it may be interesting to you, but it's not part of what you're supposed to be focused on right now. Yeah. And then you start wandering around, and then your mind is just kind of like fractionated to the point where you can't focus. And that's when you get to that point, it's because you didn't have the discipline, as you say. You didn't have you didn't have your priorities straight, and it's a trap you can fall into very easily, especially if you're a people pleaser, especially if you are in customer service, as you say, and you want to make sure that you're attentive and make your clients happy and be available to them. But that doesn't mean that you don't set boundaries for yourself and say, okay, for this period of time, I will focus on this one thing, and then I will take a break, reset, see what my next thing is, and then go on from there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that there's a phenomenon around this where if you get contacted, maybe it's a direct message, in chat, text, Slack, whatever the medium, and if you just simply wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes before replying,
Mhm.
that person's issue will resolve itself.
Yes, that does happen.
It happens, and it happens all the time. And that's because if you don't immediately respond, either they figured it out and Googled it on their own,
Right.
or reached out to somebody else who did take it immediately,
Mhm.
or whatever the case may be. But oftentimes that'll resolve. So if you feel like, hey, I'm really going to continue, heads down here, and if that's still an issue in 10 minutes, then I'll deal with it. And oftentimes you'll find that, oh, never mind, I got it taken care of, and
yeah.
But sometimes people, and including myself, just need to talk to somebody else for a moment to bring their thoughts together.
True.
There's also techniques around that, like, and people, I should get one. People put mascots on their desk or near their computer, and that may be a little bobblehead or something, or just something that you can actually look at and talk to, and actually try to describe the problem that's in your head that you're trying to solve, that you think you need to reach out to someone for help for. But have that discussion first with your mascot. And oftentimes then just having the discussion is really what you need to get things to sort out in your brain.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I've never heard that before. And I'm going to start asking my mascot questions. This is my mascot. It's my little guru. It's an air plant that died because, I don't know, I forgot to keep watering it, but now it just looks like hair. But yeah, it's like, what do you think? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is that when you externalize the thoughts and questions that you have, and just get it out to where you're hearing it in your own ears, it kind of gets you thinking about things differently, or it snaps a synapse together, or whatever the case may be. And you go, I got a new idea. I'm going to try that, or, oh, I understand, and it's just more of a matter of trying to get it out of your head and make sense of it. And you can do, it doesn't matter who you're talking to. So it could just be an inanimate object. Because if you've ever noticed, sometimes you're talking to someone about the problem, and then you realize that, oh, I know what the problem is.
Yeah.
And they hadn't even said anything yet. You just started talking to them. So they didn't really help you. You helped yourself.
I do that too. You are correct. And I will, sometimes reach out to somebody if I don't hear anything, and I'll go, okay, let me just figure this out. Well, I think sometimes it feels like that's faster to reach out to somebody else, and you don't realize that that person is not necessarily infinitely available to you at all times, and you're interrupting them and interrupting their thought process.
Yeah. Now the time spent on the one focused idea is now doubled because of the number of people who are now focused on the one thing. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So something I like to say is that email is not instant messaging, which is to say you don't need to respond to all of your email as soon as they come in. That is a trap to fall into. That will take all of your time, energy, and will to live. And I think the same for a lot of instant messaging. I mean, I feel like, my immediate family, my wife and my kids, I need to be available for their texts because it could be anything at any time. And beyond that, it can wait. A Slack message comes in, I go, okay, it's Doug, I'll get to him in a few minutes. Okay, okay, instant Facebook messages, okay, I know who that is, I'll get back to them in a few minutes. Email comes in, I have a 24-hour email response policy, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna get to it, but I'm not gonna get to it right this second because it's email, unless I'm waiting for a response, unless I'm the one waiting for a response. I emailed you, I'm waiting for your response, and I have to act on something. That's different. But to make yourself infinitely available to all of these incoming requests and messages and notifications, and essentially they're messengers of other people's agendas and energy, and you're giving your own energy away by making yourself infinitely available to all these things. And it can it fractionates your consciousness, and it takes away your own focus and purpose and energy. And I think it's an easy trap that we fall into, and just taking time away from that stuff and resetting and getting back in touch with your own thoughts, even for 5 minutes, can just really help. And that's why so many things come to us in the shower, because we're just away from all of that stuff and not thinking about anything. And then we realize that our mind really is just active all the time, and it's just waiting for a moment to get its words in edgewise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's it. I think as far as the email thing goes, email to me doesn't represent a high sense of urgency. It represents a way to share some information that you need to know, and but I think it's kind of understood that email is going to have a period of time before someone actually gets it.
Yeah.
And that's in comparison to a text message or a DM on some platform, or Slack messages and things like that, where I feel like you're one step away from being here with me in my studio to discuss an issue, and if you feel it's high urgency, then going through email is going to have a delay,
right?
But I have a tendency to respond very quickly to messages. A lot of it is because they all come here. And sometimes this thing, I'm about ready to throw it across the room because I have haptics turn on. And I get a vibration every time a message comes in, but it's also, I can continue working and glance at it, and it's kind of like the toast message or whatever, no, and I can just see the summary of the first sentence, kind of, and get an idea of whether or not I'm going to break away and handle that at this moment. So, and I have the same thing on my computer. So I've got the growl messages, and and I can just glance. It doesn't break my focus, but I can see what's coming in and do like a real quick priority. And
that can be helpful sometimes when you're like, oh, okay, that just got answered, or okay, I can prioritize that later. And go on. But I feel like that's almost like a training issue. Like you have to train yourself not to go, oh, I need to jump away.
Yeah, you don't have to go like click on it and get into it,
Right.
Just read the overview, that takes 2 seconds. You haven't broken your focus just by looking, and then you can do a quick mental organization of where that's going to fall in. And that's what I do. And I get a lot of those. So it's just part of my workflow process. However, while I'm actually in a session and mastering, I have got that stuff turned off.
Sure.
Because that I really need to be like in it and focused and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that work requires deep focus, and sometimes work does. And I think people's best work, especially creative work, requires deep focus.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, it will take you at least 3 times as long to finish it.
Yeah. But if I'm doing like accounting work or something, then I actually have been thinking about paying people to interrupt me. So
I was going to say, look, please interrupt me. I don't want to do these taxes anymore. In fact, I would welcome a spam email from an accounting firm right now. I will definitely click on that. Oh,
there you go.
There you go. I think that, I don't know if we have a conclusion other than give yourself the grace.
There's no conclusion.
Give yourself the grace to, and the permission to not pay attention to everything all the time. And you might find that your priorities start to sort themselves out, and you don't have the same issue of overwhelm and a lack of focus if you just take a moment.
Yeah. Do a simple point system, 1 through 10. Where's it? Where's the thing lie? You could be working on your 10, and something comes in, okay, that's a 4,
There
and
you
we're
go.
gonna, and just mentally kind of do a prioritization. That's real fast. It gives you just an idea of when, so that's 3 things down the line, because I got a 6 and a 7 that need to come in before that,
Yeah.
and just try to work under that kind of little constraint that you give yourself.
Yeah. You remember, you've probably seen The Incredibles. Remember when the villain says, when everybody is special, nobody is? It's like
Yeah.
everything can't be top priority, because then everything's at the same level. That means nothing is top priority. So something has to be first. And yeah, I think of it in terms of the quadrants, like urgent and important, urgent but not important, urgent, or no, not urgent and not important, and important but not urgent. And prioritizing things, if it's not important and not urgent, that can go on the back burner indefinitely. If it's important and urgent, then it needs to be front and center. And and I think that we find ourselves thinking that everything that comes in is urgent, whether it's important or not. And there's a difference between urgent and important, and it's important to know the difference.
Yeah. And then that could lead you into like the product management triangle, so if we want to like use geometry, we can start with the quadrant, or the quad rectangle, and move into the project management triangle, and at some point we're going to get into the communication circle, and
I'm going to circle back on that, and yeah, geometry next week. Circle back to geometry.
All right, everybody, have a great week.
Thanks. I was looking for Pi Day on my calendar. Yes, have a great week, everybody.
Right.
Thanks for listening.
Yep. And enjoy.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, peace.